Hello and welcome. Today we will be talking about multiplying fractions, and specifically we will be talking about multiplication of fractions, cross multiplication, and reciprocals. When you are multiplying a fraction, this is used to solve multiplication problems, and if you have an integer, you must convert that to fraction form. Once that's done, you multiply your numerator by your numerator and then denominator by your denominator. When you are cross multiplying, this is used to determine if fractions are equal or not. This can also be used to find a missing value in one of the fractions. If you have any whole numbers or integers in your fractions, you have to convert those to fraction form first. And once that's done, you multiply your first numerator by your second denominator, then you multiply your first denominator by your second numerator, hence why it's called cross multiplication. Then for reciprocals, this is used to solve division problems. When you are dividing two fractions, you need to find the reciprocal of the second fraction only, never the first fraction. And then you can change the division problem to multiplication problem and multiply like normal. So you multiply your numerator by your numerator, then your denominator by your denominator. Here we have an example of multiplication of fractions. So we have 2/3 times 4/5, and there are no integers or whole numbers present, so we do not need to convert to fraction form. All we need to do is multiply our numerator by our numerator and denominator by our denominator. This gives us 2 times 4 equals 8 for our new numerator, and then 3 times 5 equals 15 for our new denominator. And we cannot reduce or simplify anything, so this gives us our final answer of 8/15. Here we have another example of multiplication of fractions. So we do have a whole number or integer in this example, and we need to put it into fraction notation. And that is our number 5. And since it's only a whole number, we just need to stick it over 1 because it's 5 whole things, and there's no other fraction next to it to deal with. And after we do that, we can multiply like normal. We multiply our numerator by our numerator and denominator by denominator. And this gives us 5 times 3 equals 15. And then 1 times 8 equals 8 for our new denominator. And with this one, we can reduce or simplify. So we can take 8 whole things out of 15, which gives us 1 for a whole number. And we're left with 3/8 for our fraction. And our final answer is 1 3/8. An application for using multiplication of fractions is multiplying more than 2 fractions. So finding the area of triangles is another way to use this. And here we have our triangle with a base of 3/4 inches and a height of 1/2 inches. And the area for formula for a triangle is 1/2 times the base times the height. And if we plug in our values, this gives us 1/2 times 3/4 times 1/2. And we can multiply that out, so our numerator times our numerator times our numerator is 1 times 3 times 1, which gives us 3. And then if we multiply all our denominators together, this gives us 2 times 4 times 2, which gives us 16. And since this is area, we also need to include our unit of measurement, which is inches squared. So our final answer is 3/16 inches squared. All right, and the next thing we need to talk about is cross multiplication. And the first way we do this is for equality. And when you're cross multiplying, you multiply your first numerator by your second denominator, and then you multiply your first denominator by your second numerator. And we can rewrite this as 3 times 91 equals -7 times -39. And if we simplify that, that gives us 273 equals 273. So this is a true statement. 273 will always equal 273 because they're the same number. And we can replace our little question mark with an equal sign because since 273, these are the same numbers, this means that our fractions are the same. They are equivalent. For another example, we have 19/3 and 95/18. If we multiply our first numerator by second denominator and first denominator by second numerator, we will get 19 times 8 equals 3/95. And we can simplify that down to 342 equals 285. These are not the same number. 342 can never equal 285 because they're not the same number, obviously. So we will replace our question mark with a does not equal sign because these fractions do not equal. The other reason to use cross multiplication is for a missing value. So here we have our example of 25 over 200 equals 1 over something. You might be able to do this in your head and tell me it equals 8, but if you don't know that, then you can use cross multiplication. So you multiply your first numerator by your second denominator and your first denominator by your second numerator, and you rewrite this with a variable instead of your question mark. So here we have 25 times y, we'll use y for our variable, and then we have 1 times 200. And if we simplify this, this gives us 25y equals 200. So we need to isolate our variable, and to do that we divide by 25 on both sides. And this gives us y equals 8. So then we can plug in 8 for our missing value, which will give us our equivalent fraction. So 25 over 200 will equal 1 over 8. The last thing we need to discuss is reciprocals, and you need to know what a reciprocal is. A reciprocal is just a flipped fraction. So here we have a couple examples. 1/3, your flip of that would be 3 over 1. And since 3 over 1 is a whole number, you don't need to keep that over 1, you can just say 3. Here we have another example of 2 over 7, and if you flip that, it's just 7 over 2. If you have something with a whole number in it, let's say you have 3 and 3/4, you would need to change that to fraction form, which would give us 15 over 4, and then you can find the reciprocal of that. So the reciprocal of 15 over 4, if you flip it, is just 4 over 15. And if you need to find out if something is a reciprocal, you can multiply them together and they will equal out 1. So if you multiply 15 times 4 and 4 times 15, this will give you a fraction that equals 1. Or if you do 1 times 3 and then 3 times 1, this will give you 3 over 3, which is 1. So reciprocals are used when you are dividing two fractions. So you need to flip or find the reciprocal of the second fraction. And then you can change your division to multiplication. So the reciprocal of our second fraction, 3/8, would be 8 over 3. And then we can change that to multiplication. So 4/7 times 8/3 will give us 4 times 8 over 7 times 3. And this equals 32 over 21. And if we simplify that, you can take 1 whole 21 out of 32 and give us the whole number 1, and that'll leave us with 11 over 21 for our fraction. And that would be our final answer. So that is it for this video. Thank you and goodbye.